this is Anthony with Tenkara Angler. Today I'm bringing you a new series of videos that I'm working on called Tenkara Moves. And the goal of this series will be to speak with different anglers and learn about the way they fish. We'll learn something about them along the way, but hopefully at the end of the videos you'll have some real techniques and tips and strategies that you can take with you to the stream as you develop your own Tenkara style and your own Tenkara moves. This first episode is going to feature Amanda Hoffner. I had a good time talking to her, and hope you enjoy, and stay tuned for more of these coming up in the future. Thank you.
Well, I grew up in Pennsylvania, and I am used to fishing in the upper Appalachia in that northeastern Pennsylvania. Maybe I should be more elaborate. A green tunnel. That's what we call the Appalachian Trail, the green tunnel. I'm used to a freestone stream, lots of rhododendron, boulder climbing, small pockets, small runs, riffles. That's what I envision. Elevation. But yeah, I target brook trout. I target native and wild fish. So a lot of the fish I'm used to catching are wild browns. I didn't actually grow up catching wild rainbows just because where I was at, we didn't have wild rainbows. But my target is brook trout. Yeah. Into the experience that I've had over the past few years in fishing, I did start with a shorter rod because I was not very confident and in my casting abilities to make sure I could maneuver around the trees and the rhododendron. So I actually have gravitated towards an 11-foot, 12-foot rod, even in these tight streams that I've been fishing. One thing that I think is important is, and I think it was Jason Sparks that told me, fish the longest rod that you can, because usually I'm fishing a shorter line than the rod that I'm fishing, especially with being able to get a good hook set with the fish that I'm catching, just because of how low the foliage is usually. So right now I'm using an 11-foot 6-rod and using either a level line or a nylon tapered line, some kind of line that's going to help me get to my destination without twisting. And yeah, I even started with a furled line and a lot shorter rod. So right now it's an 11-foot 6-rod and basically maybe an 11-foot line plus my 3-foot tippet. And I'm usually using soft tackle. So I tie my own flies, and when I first started out, I just bought the packs that came with rods, with Tenkara Rod Co. and Tenkara USA. They're typical flies that you would see. The Sakasa, the most iconic, Tenkara fly. I started fishing with those Utah killer bugs too, but now I usually tie a really small profile fly for the body, and it's usually natural colors like black on black. So black body, black hackle, or black body, maybe like a brown hackle, variegated. But I'm very boring. I try not to change my fly as much as I can, because I think it takes away that variable. And if I don't catch a fish where I think a fish should be, I just move on pretty quickly, just because there's a lot of stream to cover. And I've already hiked 2 miles in, so I want to keep catching fish everywhere. So I want to hit all the runs. I want to hit all the pools. And if I'm not catching it with that fly, to me, it takes time to change a fly or, So when I fished with Matt, it was really funny. I fished with him for the first time in Wisconsin. The first time I met him earlier than that, but the first time I ever fished with him was in Wisconsin on one of his favorite streams and in the driftless. And he's like, wow, you fish just like me. I'm like, I don't know what that means, because I don't usually fish with a lot of people. It's usually just me, and I don't have to worry about anyone else. When you go out to eat with someone and you have to worry, are they going to be able to eat something? Or no, it's just me. Like I can move at my pace. I can fish at my pace. But we were really able to just boom, 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 just because it's almost like we were reading each other's minds with how fast we were fishing. For the most part, that's like my strategy, just to keep moving. But there are days, if I fish the same stream over and over again, I will change up my tactics, fish different columns of the water and stuff like that. Everyone's like, oh, I just want to be outside. And I would even if I don't catch a fish, it's a great day. Honestly, it's a pretty crappy day if you don't catch a fish, to me. If I'm being honest. I mean, do I love being outside? Yes. But if I'm going to the same spot, it's a comfort zone too, right? Like everyone has that confident that fly that they're confident in. I have that spot that I'm confident in, you know, or a stream that you're confident on. I mean, it's yeah. It's not only about the cast, but how are you going to land the fish? How are you going to do your hook set? So it's not only, you know, can I cast into this hole? Anyone can cast, you know, back and forth. So I'm actually looking also, how am I going to land the fish? How am I going to hook set? So that's something I think that's different than a lot of people. They're not sometimes maybe thinking about, oh yeah, I can cast here. Okay, so when you get a fish though, how are you going to bring it in? So I'm always looking, how am I going to bring that fish to hand? And it doesn't necessarily, I want my first cast to be flawless, but is it? Probably, you know, it's like a 50-50 chance, you know, because you're just rigging up your rod, you know. So I want it to be a nice smooth cast and a nice perfectly fly first presentation, so you're not spooking fish because you're drooling, you see a nice, you know, there's a fish there. But you know, dreams do come true. I'd say 50% of the time I'm able to get a fly first cast of the day in that tight rhododendron, you know, choked stream. But that's, yeah, just I usually go in with a soft tackle with a dead drift, just to not disturb anything. If they're feeding, and then I'll start to get more aggressive with my manipulations and presentations. But yeah, I start nice and slow. So not only am I dead drifting, I'm like landing my fly really, really softly on the water, not to scare any fish. My goal is not to scare fish, because usually where I'm fishing, the fish are really opportunistic. They're hungry. If they're hungry and they're feeding, they're gonna hopefully eat on. That's what I've learned. Eat on what I give them. So if I'm not scaring them, usually I catch a fish. So I'll start with a dead drift with a soft fly landing in the water presentation. If not, I'll start actually pounding my fly into, like, with a harder flick of my arm, and having that fly create some kind of ripple, and then doing another dead drift. And I really don't do too many casts in a small pool if I'm casting into a pool. I have learned to do certain things, you know, with Matt Sment and Jason, to try and get my soft tackle to actually dive deeper, you know, using my line to actually pull that with the current, pull my fly down deeper into the water. So I'll start doing that. I usually fish upper column, and then I'll fish down in the water. But maybe 4 or 5 runs through a hole. I know a lot of people maybe use really clear level line. I can't see that for the life of me. And that's usually my indicator, is the end of my main line, to being able to see any kind of differentiation in terms of, you know, is it hitting something, or is there a bite? So I'll keep everything out of the water except my 3 to 5 foot tippet. Oh boy. It has to be something. I can't stand silence. So it can be anything from Lana Del Rey to I don't know, Amy Winehouse to Third Eye Blind. I'm really into the 90s alternative. I was born in the late 80s, and I just grew up on 90s alternative music. So that's usually my go-to. Some kind of female raspy voice to 90s alternative. That's what puts me in my comfort zone.